move through the world.
Tonight, a university instructor with links to two prominent New York institutions of higher learning is raising uncomfortable questions about September 11th. Not about what we all saw, but what he claims we still haven't been told. It's the subject of tonight's Fact Finders Report. Here's Peter Thorne. Peter.
And Jim, he insists, do not call him a conspiracy theorist, says he's just a skeptic, asking tough questions. But some complain he and others like him are for no good reason just prolonging the pain of that deadly day.
Quick, what do you really think? When Oswald shot JFK, did he act alone? Was Marilyn Monroe murdered?
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
What about Diana? Is Tupac still alive? Okay, how about Elvis? And Enron's Kin Lay? Was he really in that coffin? From the hit TV show The X-Files to the Da Vinci Code, Americans have always loved a good conspiracy theory, and 9/11 is proving no different, in some quarters becoming the ultimate urban legend, even as critics complain. Entertaining such notions dishonors the dead.
In a way, they're kind of playing a parlor game with a tragedy that took nearly 3,000 lives. So it's, at best, offensive.
I want to use science to get to the truth. I was very nearly a victim myself. I was very nearly killed that day myself. I knew people who died in the building. If I can't question it, who is entitled to question it?
Gary Wells is a local New York City college teacher and adjunct lecturer in mathematics at John Jay and Fordham. He's suspicious of what he calls the government's official story about what happened on September 11th. He took me to the roof of his downtown Manhattan apartment building in the shadow of Ground Zero to talk publicly for the first time.
This is where I and many of my neighbors gathered around 9 o'clock on the morning of September 11th. The first tower was hit about 8:30, and then the second plane actually flew over our heads. It flew directly down here and impacted the second tower, the South Tower.
A member of an organization of skeptics called Scholars for 9/11 Truth, Wells points out the EPA gave false assurances about air quality downtown after the attack, calling it safe to breathe. So he wonders what other falsehoods exist. He thinks there are still too many unanswered questions about what happened on 9/11.
We are definitely not being told the entire story. I believe the government is protecting us from some truth too horrible for us to really accept. Buildings don't collapse because of fire. Only on September 11th, for the first time ever in history, did buildings collapse as a result of fire. I want to know why that happened.
If you think his views sound odd, he's not alone. We found his name at the Scholars for 9/11 Truth website, listed right along with professors from reputable schools like the universities of California, Texas, Colorado, and Illinois. Polls show 42% believe the government concealed evidence that contradicts official accounts. 36% believe it's very likely or somewhat likely that the government allowed the attacks to occur because they wanted the U.S. to go to war in the Middle East.
I think it's important for people who question the official story of September 11th to not be dismissed as lunatics. I think it's important to hear every objection and every question.
Why is there no damage from where the wings or the vertical stabilizer or the engines would have slammed into the building?
That clip from Loose Change, a bona fide internet hit viewed by millions of conspiracy theorists or the just plain curious who entertain eerie suspicions that the World Trade Center and WTC-7 were destroyed not just by planes possibly piloted by remote control, but by controlled demolition.
They're good for generating a newspaper copy, but I'm not so sure that they have a whole lot of believability to them.
And disturbing suggestions that the Pentagon was not hit by a plane at all, but by a missile, masterminded by shadowy conspirators eager for war.
But there were hundreds of eyewitnesses that saw the plane hit the Pentagon in broad daylight. Well, where was Flight 77 then if it didn't strike the Pentagon? And that's where you really start to get into some crazy kinds of non-logical leaps. There's all sorts, there's a whole mountain of evidence that proves there was a plane in the Pentagon, but there's no evidence that there was ever a missile fired at it.
They've become something of an underground cottage industry, these 9/11 conspiracy flicks and clips, proliferating on the internet, almost a new genre unto themselves. This one called In Plain Sight.
Now the question is, if both towers are still standing and the smoke is being blown away from the towers, What is this huge plume of smoke, approximately 50 to 60 stories high, rising from the Trade Center area?
Focusing on facts, not suspicions, writers like this man, co-author of Debunking 9/11 Myths, who point by point hope to use science to demolish any claims 9/11 was a homegrown conspiracy.
Eventually, it just collapses under its own absurdity.
I read the 9/11 Commission report. I think they did a very thorough job.
And it's not just internet movies, but books like this, written by a retired California college professor, suggesting 9/11 was a sinister government plot. And this book, pointing to a noticeable lack of debris and differing eyewitness accounts, suggests United Flight 93, the legendary Let's Roll hijacked jet, brought vividly back to life on screen in this Hollywood movie, might have been shot down, not commandeered by passengers over Pennsylvania.
This aircraft is going down, I'm telling you right now.
Other skeptics raising questions claim this picture showing the smoke cloud after United 93 crashed looks like an out-and-out fake. But so much suspicious talk with so little solid evidence only brings pain to people like this young woman, a California tourist fact finders found overwhelmed and in tears at Ground Zero.
I'm just thinking that it's terrible that such a tragic event happened.
The idea that there were somehow secret teams of demolition experts scurrying around, stripping off insulation, planning charges, wiring the buildings is just ludicrous.
Now, looking at this very same issue recently, Time magazine suggested sometimes people cling to conspiracy theories hoping to make sense of awful random events. By the way, Gary Wells says he does not bring his personal views into the classroom. Now, if you'd like to see this story again, please visit our website, CW11.com/factfinders.
People are welcome to speculate, but the thing that always turns me away from theories like this is eventually you're talking about plots where hundreds of people would have to be involved to pull it off. And it just strains credibility to the breaking point that it would remain a secret.
And nevertheless, they persist with these theories, and the critics of the skeptics also feel it's important for them to raise their voices.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, sure.
All right, more legal troubles for the nation's